Thank you for gracing us with your presence and energy at this gathering. To quote Doreen Fernandez, this bounty becomes habit, then taste. She was, of course, referring to the richness of our land in all its dimensions. It is indeed our bounty to have all of you with us today and hope your continuing presence at gatherings like this at Karrivin becomes a habit. We hope to see you here in the future. Today, WHYNoT is privileged and deeply appreciative of having the opportunity to collaborate with Exploding Galaxies. Their efforts and initiatives in publishing Filipino literature is singular, fresh, and inspiring. And we join all the usual suspects of the Karrivin community to celebrate two outstanding individuals in the field of literature. Mara will obviously share so much more than I can about that. Meanwhile, please profit from the small exhibition on pottery that was made possible through loans of their personal collections from Professor Ray Macapagal and Chim Zayas from UP and ceramic artist Mansi Abesabis. And to start off this afternoon, we are happy to start with the beautiful voice of Bart Gingona, reading excerpts from Palayok and Sarap.
Okay, an excerpt from Sarap by Edilberto Alegre. The spit of white sand, no more than 400 meters long, called Tungkalang in Sanga-Sanga Island, is the mooring place of a group of Bajaus who have started to return after a dispersal which has lasted for 12 years. There was a whole village complete with a Catholic school up to 1975. During the government's war with the MNLF, the place was strafed because the Bajaus were suspected of being allies of the MNLF. The government's ignorance victimized an entire village. Pitted against the power of the army, what could the Bajaus do? Some migrated to Sabah. Others sought relatives in the different islands of Tawi-Tawi. Some took refuge in a temporary mooring place close to where the Bongao Catholic Church was located, Luok, Bangka. Today, only 42 have returned, trying out the forces that work, hoping that now they have become hospitable at their return. During the decade of their diaspora, changes have taken place even in the physical setting of the moorage. Where passengers used to be ferried across in the short span between Sanga-Sanga and Bongao, a concrete bridge was built for the development of both islands. This entailed, however, the dredging of the nearby Sea of Corals, which were used to dam the end posts of the bridge and the newly built road. The portions of the road close to the bridge were in fact built of coral, and even today, the vestiges of this rape of the shoreline speak eloquently of completely uninformed government development programming. What indeed could the Bajaus do against the bullets of an army and the tractors of the DPWH? What resulted was not only the displacement of an entire village, a disruption and eventual destruction of an ecological system systematically took place. The old mooring place disappeared. The currents of the sea changed. Like pitiful birds, some of the Bajaus tried to go back to their homes. A few anchored close to the bridge, but the rape of the corals was still taking place. The currents changed as the coral beds were being destroyed. The political and ecological instability rendered return impossible. Then one day, 12 years later, it rained and rained. The sea delivered sand to form a mound. The winds dispersed the sand. More sand welled out of the sea. After 3 days, a bar of white, fine sand appeared. This was the rebirth of Tungkalang, which literally means point, tung, in a sandbar, kalang. It was Ahmad, son-in-law of the village leader Hajulani, who was the first to resettle. He had been biding his time in Look Bangka. He wrote his father-in-law, who was then in Sabah, that the old village was being formed again. Ahmad explained what the village is to them. It is home, he said. You can travel to Balabac in Sabah and even stay lengthily on different islands in search of a livelihood, but you will always come back to your village. It is your home. And this is what is called a traditional mooring place. According to their legend, boatloads of them came long ago from Johor, Indonesia, for some unknown reason. One evening, they secured their boats with ropes to poles, as they were wont to do. They did not know that the poles were thrust into the back of a giant stingray, which in its displeasure swam away to dislodge the poles stuck into him. Thus, the bangkas were dispersed to 10 places: Sitangay, Sibutu, Belatan, Sanga-Sanga, Holo, etc., to as far as Zamboanga. These are the traditional Bajau morages. There is a legend particular to Tungkalang. Its leader, Panglima Bongao, who died in the 1950s, asked Hajulani before he died never to leave Tungkalang. Whenever Hajulani thinks of abandoning the moorage for good, Panglima Bongao appears in a dream, seeming to strangle him. The reappearance of Tungkalang from the sea is the work of Panglima Bongao, Hajulan avers. It is logical, therefore, that the village too should reappear. What do the Bajaus get from the island? Pandan for their mats, kamoteng kahoy for their staple food, and logs for the boats they build. No one can possibly live solely on the sea. One must eat carbohydrates and build shelter. One must wear clothes, and clothes used to be woven from land plant fibers. The viands of the Bajaus came from the sea: shellfish, sea cucumber, seaweed, sea urchins, fish. Their staple food, however, is kamoteng kahoy, which, like our rice, has different names for its different forms. Raw kamoteng kahoy is called kamanting. When grated and water is squeezed out, one has panggi kayu. Panggi kayu can be boiled to produce tibuk bilya. This can be pounded with grated coconut into posak, which is then dipped in sugar. When panggu kayu is made into sinangag by dry frying, tumpek is formed. This is equivalent to our kanin. When steamed, it is putu, and when made into a suman, it is bamban. The linguistic elaborations for the different stages of cassava attests to the centrality of this root crop in their food world. Certainly, it is their staple. Their staple viand is fish, which they call daing. What is fish to them is to us salted and dried. Their daing can be roasted over fire, and they use a term which Ilocanos also use, tinuno. They have a term for prito, landang-landa, and what is daing to us is dingtoho or pongdang to them. The latter is very close to pindang, another term for drying and salting, or tapa. While there are occasional additions to this daily fare of tumpek and daing, such as gabi, kari, langka or nangka, saging, also saging to them, and sile, lara, their fish is invariably cooked, and they eat only fresh fish, by boiling in water with leaves of sulasi, a plant akin to verbena. This is the only potted plant, or indeed the only plant which can be found in a Bajau house. The sulasi removes the peculiar taste and smell, or lansa, of the fish. Bajaus do not add salt. Neither do they add spices. Our paksiw gives them headaches. It must be the ginger, they said. Our sinigang is tolerable, but one day I cooked tom yum for them, and of course, this Thai sinigang needed tanglad, sili, and luya. It made them sick for one whole day. While they are acquainted with dilaw and tanglad, putting spices together in one dish, they use no pepper or garlic. It's simply too much. Their food has the simplicity of good, basic, honest, down-to-earth, day-to-day Ilocano peasant fare, except that the latter can eat a lot of vegetables which are absent from the Bajau diet. Both, however, exhibit a respect for the basic integrity of the food material. Spices have a transformative effect since they change the basic flavor of food. While we think of spices as enriching the taste of food, Ilocanos and the Bajaus regard the innate original taste of the food as riches itself. To transform food is to lose that richness. Transformation is violation of original integrity. It sickens the Bajaus. The Bajaus do not have a word for breakfast, lunch, dinner. But of course, they have a word for to eat, mangan. This means that they do not have specific names, times for eating. Agahan, tanghalian, and hapunan correspond to the specific segment of the day when we eat. There is no word for eating at night or gabihan because in the daily agricultural cycle, the last meal is traditionally in the late afternoon before it becomes gabi. The Bajaus eat when there is food and or when they are hungry. This could be any time of day or night, and the interval between meals could be just 2 hours. The determinant of their eating is not the time of day. Time does not dictate their meal schedule. Time is not divided into segments during which the Bajaus are supposed to be doing something. They are focused on what they are doing, i.e. boats building, fishing, mat weaving, gathering cassava. Eating becomes only a minor activity. Thus, their food is monotonous. There need not be any adventures in this part of their day. Invariably, they eat only tumpek and fish that has been boiled in water and sulasi. This fish broth they call nilohoan, which is derived from the root word loho, meaning sabaw. Luho to us, of course, means luxury. It could be also said that they really ingest only a very limited number of land products. And indeed, what can one do with cassava and fish? In how many ways can one combine their staples of diet? Neither do they buy food, so tradition and economic conditions have conspired to make their culinary worlds monotonous. To them, the most delicious food is dolphin, that which we call lumba-lumba, and they, ubong. They slice it into small cubes and simply boil it. It tastes like pork, and when a little of the blood is somehow included, then it is like dinuguan. When a Bajau catches a dolphin, he shares it with as many relatives as possible, even with those who do not reside in his moorage. A large part of the value lies in its rarity. And now here's an excerpt from Palayok, an essay called A Dissertation on the Philippine Roast Pig by Doreen G. Fernandez. On a recent food trip, 2 chefs, 2 restaurateurs, 2 writers, and an assortment of devout foodies stopped at Malatapay, a town outside Dumaguete, Negros Oriental, where on Wednesdays there is a livestock, food, dry goods, handicraft, etc. transient market. It is a grand taboo, tienda, or market day that draws hundreds of sellers, buyers, lookers-on, and out-of-towners like us. Most were buying food, Many were buying fabrics, clothes, sleeping mats, and slippers. Some were seriously contemplating live and restless carabaos, horses, and pigs. Some were considering the varieties, the wares of medicine men, and the skills of tooth pullers, proven by their display of pulled teeth. We split up and wondered. We glimpsed one buying a clay steamer, another a large salted butterfly-cut dried fish about a foot long, two unfolding colored sleeping mats, one taking video footage and another still photos. We all, however, ended within the same 10 minutes at the end point on the beach where turned bamboo spits over open fires. Beside them, lechoneros were already cutting up and weighing portions to eat right there or take home. It was irresistible. Forget cholesterol was the battle cry. We tasted, approved, tasted again, ordered some kinilaw, and mostly just ate lechon. This before lunch, purportedly as an appetizer. One lechonero had rubbed salt and garlic inside his lechunin before roasting. Another had added tausi, salted soybeans. Most customers did not look for the usual salsa of roasted liver, vinegar, and sugar. Some ate the flesh and skin as is. Others used the vinegar garlic dip. Inevitably, all reminisced about lechons they had known and loved. For the Tagalogs, they usually stuffed with tamarind leaves and served with salsa. The Cebuanos recalled pigs stuffed with mango leaves or banana leaves or a combination, one even with pork and beans. And then they were proud that Cebuano lechon needs no salsa. We Ilonggos boasted of small suckling pigs rubbed with salt and stuffed with lemongrass, fragrant from the first bit of skin to the tender round ribs, aromatic with tanglad. Then, of course, one remembers the occasions for lechon, the fiesta, certainly, when children, admonished and threatened into being quiet and still, sat around the experts and watched the whole process, bringing in squealing pigs which they had gotten acquainted with the day before, cleaning and scrubbing them with hot water till they were pristine white, butchering them and allowing the blood to drip out for the dinuguan, skewering them on long bamboo poles, turning them over the open fire, water or lard, basting them with banana leaf whisks. The lechoneros laughing, joking, tempering the heat, and quenching their thirst with tuba, or palm toddy, and kinilaw. In Angono, I once saw an empty lot filled with edge to edge, with pigs a-roasting, some 300 for a whole town, a mouth-watering spectacle. Christmas, of course, is lechon time. Since this is the quintessential dish for feasting, I used to order a yearly lechon for the family reunion from a company that roasted hundreds of pigs on mechanically turning metal spits in a space as large as an airplane hangar. One year, the mechanism broke. The pigs had to be roasted in Montalban, Rizal, and trucked into Quezon City. An angry mob awaited them, protesting, "My guests are waiting. I promised my compadre. The family is hungry." The anxiety and anger, especially from women, told me how deeply lechon is regarded and with what passion. Lechon memories inevitably start with the crisp, crackling skin, or the ears, or the tail, torn off by hand, dipped into salsa and crunched as one greets family and friends. Then the tender flesh and the layer, thin ideally, of fat, cubed and passed around, and for some connoisseurs, the tender ribs twisted off the rib cage and sucked. Some actually prefer lechon the day after, when it has been cooked in its salsa. Talk about prolonging pleasure and sharing it with those who were not around for the delicious beginning. At Baclaran, lechon stalls At lechon stalls, one can buy heads, feet, or any other parts just for paksiw. Where did we get this predilection for roast pig? The name we call it by is Spanish and simply means pig. The Spanish call their roast suckling pig cochinillo asado and boast that it can be sliced with the edge of a saucer. But perhaps we may long have shared the dish with neighbors in the Pacific Rim, since the Samoans and the Hawaiians have roast pig, sometimes cooked on hot stones underground. And of course, the Chinese know roast pig well. They, whom Charles Lamb immortalized in his essay, Dissertation on a Roast Pig, where they are reported as having been discovered when a house accidentally burnt down. The owner poked his finger in, got scorched, and stuck it into his mouth, and discovered that by delicious circumstances, the pig in the house had transformed into ambrosia. The winds that wafted roast pig into our culture were strong ones, engraving lechon indelibly in our lives. Lechon kawali, lechon bokawe, lechon por kilo. Pigs roasted in bakery ovens in the US by hand at fiestas, mechanically in cities, lechon de leche for small families, or giant pigs feeding fiesta crowds. Lechunin stuffed with whatever is customary or desired, served on family tables, on the beach, in the restaurant, in market stalls. Then, after the roast, paksiw na lechon, even sinigang na lechon. We just can't do without it. It is definitely one of the most favored savors of our culture. Thank you.
I'm Mara from Exploding Galaxies. I'm genuinely so thankful that you guys are all here today to support this launch. Thank you all for coming today. I really, truly appreciate it. For a publisher, nothing is better than seeing so many people show up to a book launch. It's amazing. Thank you. So I want to first acknowledge the presence of the estates of Doreen Fernandez and Ed Alegre. So from the estate of Doreen Fernandez, it's represented by Maya Besarojas over there waving. Please give her a round of applause. And from the estate of Edilberto Alegre, we have his wife Joycey Alegre over here. And as well as his son, Lacan, who is here with me. So these three people are actually the most important people in the room for a publisher like us, because I wouldn't have done this book without their trust and their support, and also their commitment to their writer, to the legacy of these writers. So beside me is Christian Henson. He designed Sarap. And then we have Jill Santiu, who contributed his amazing photographs for Palayok. So you'll hear from them in a little bit. I'll just do my bit and then I'll pass the mic to them, because it'll help round out the experience of how we got to these two books. So there is actually someone who isn't in the room that I'd like to acknowledge. He's Clinton Palanca. He was my former colleague. It's great that a lot of you know who Clinton is. He was a great guy. And you know, he was more than a food writer, but he was best known as one. And I used to sit across him, and we would, and he'd always tell me about Doreen Fernandez. And back in the day, I didn't know who Doreen Fernandez was, and so he'd always tell me stories saying, "Oh, you should have met. You know, I wish you could have met her." So I actually dedicate these two books to him. And I'd actually also like to dedicate these two books to everybody here. Everyone who has tried or who has kept on trying to find copies of Sarap, of Palayok. I mean, many of you have come up to me with a Doreen Fernandez story, or people are like, come up to me and say, hey, you should really republish Inumang Pinoy. So for that, a lot of you, thank you. So at Exploding Galaxies, what we do is we republish what are called lost classics of Philippine literature. These are books that should have never been lost, actually, but somehow are over time. So what we do is we find them and we bring them back. And while at first we actually wanted to remain within the orbit of fiction, books like Sarap and Palayok, they're just so important. We couldn't ignore the call for them. And actually, maybe I also got tired of people asking me about Sarap, so here we are today. So it's really interesting because on this exact day, 4 decades ago, if you notice in your copies of Sarap, Doreen Fernandez and Ed Alegre wrote, "We confess to having had fun writing this book." And so they talked about their adventures and their experiences and how it entered into their food memory, a collection of memories that made the book. And then they said it was a case of the present colliding with the past, of past and present, enriching each other and our understanding. So, this book is as old as me, but it is now us looking back at them through these books, and they are now to us our past, enriching our understanding. And so to use their words, I confess to having also had fun making these books. So these two books have actually been out of print for a long time. Sarap was not reprinted after 1988, and Palayok not after the year 2000. So, and some people have come up to me saying, a copy of Sarap costs 35,000 pesos if you try to buy it now. It's not today, actually, so I would encourage you all to buy. So I'd also like to thank Neil Oshima. He is somewhere here. So he'd often ask me when I was going to publish Doreen Fernandez, and he connected me with Maya. So I also thank Maya for letting me pass that test to become the publisher of Palayok. And then I think 2 meetings later, I had the nerve to ask, can I also do Sarap? And we'll just do, we'll just launch these 2 books simultaneously. And I couldn't believe that she said yes, and then that you guys said yes too. It was quite incredible. Because this book, again, hasn't seen republication since 1988. And I'm also thankful to my team at Exploding Galaxies, to the editors as well, who've had long conversations with Maya over italics and the many ways to now spell lechon, pancit, all these things. They really nerded out. And for Palayok, I'd like to thank Miguel Mari, who is somewhere here in the crowd. He designed Palayok. I know he didn't want to come up on stage, so I'm just acknowledging him from here. So he also designed our novel series, which we have available today too. And so he reimagined the book and worked collaboratively with Jill Santiu here, who really searched his archives for the first catches from a fisherman's boat to photos and life in Manila and in Bacolod. And for Sarap, I want to thank Christian here. And his and his design assistant Isipo. They went through the route naman of illustrations, which is a nice counterpart because then I like to think of these 2 books as fraternal twins in spite of the age gap. But Christian will tell you more about the book in a little bit. And he had the idea to work with talented illustrators. I think some of them are here: Kitty Hardenil, Eva Yu, El Shivers, and Gian Encarnacion. They're incredible. I can't wait for you guys to look at the illustrations. So here are the 2 books written by 2 great writers. Writers we've encountered through their scholarship, the conversation and their essays, their long-lived columns, Business World and Inquirer, and many more actually. Their exploration of how we use language, the past, our surroundings, and our body to experience food. So even if it's a new outfit and we are in 2025, these are actually the same books you've been looking for. You'll still find the same timeless words. In short, they're back. So thank you again to all of you. By being here to support the book, you are why we do what we do. So I'll pass the mic now to Lacan so you can say a few words about his father and his legacy.
Thank you, Mara. There are basically just three things that I wanted to share with Mara, of course. Firstly, thank you for also looking out for the book and reprinting it. And truly, it is a lost classic because to the first point, actually, we only have 2 copies of the first edition in the family that are left. So one is with us here, and another is in the States. And then, admittedly, because of since 1988, it became brittle already. So it's we're more than happy, of course, to get this reprinted as well. And I speak for both, probably with Tita Maya as well. Secondly, when Mara had told me, had asked me to talk here, she wanted to, I think, expound on the importance of actually retrieving lost Filipiniana classics in the contemporary period. And to tell you quite honestly, no, both Palayok and Sarap, printed first in 1988 for Sarap and then 2000 for Palayok, I never read them, not until I was in college. Why? First, I was growing up. I was doing my own business as a kid. But apart from that, there are actually required readings in class. And I'm taking up Philippine Studies. So, my father died when I was 9 years old. And then Tita Doreen, I had not really grew up to meet her that much. So I came to know her more through her writings and their friendship, and as well as photographs that we have in the family estate. Most beautiful part about it is that I get to know both the personal and the intellectual history through their writings, and which is something very dear, especially that both Tita Doreen and my father are nationalists. In that sense, that what they had advocated for, whether it was in the domain of food, theater, literature, was the core question of who is the Filipino and what makes us Filipino. And for today, we're celebrating food. That is a core domain in Philippine culture. And I think the title, no, both Palayok and Sarap, encapsulate what it actually means. And which is, masarap mabuhay sa Pilipinas. Kaya basagin natin yung Palayok na kung nawala tayong identidad bago dumating ang mga Espanyol. At siguro, yun po yung pinakamasaya na basahin yung mga ito. And to the third point, no, I'd like to share with you something that's very personal. So when I was growing up, my mother, in my teenage years, was already telling me stories of paano sila nagliligawan ng tatay ko, di ba? And then, one of the most charming things that my father would do is that after he would leave me at school, bibili siya sa Tacloban ng siopaw sa Quality Bake Shop, and then would go to my mom to surprise her for lunch. And then yun na yun. Yung masarap yung siopaw sa Quality Bake Shop sa Tacloban City. But it was those littlest things in the nooks and corners of Philippine society, whether it's a small bake shop, a big restaurant, where you find the most loving things and what truly makes us Pinoy, or Pinay for that matter. At siguro yun po, and I'll end it by saying na mabuhay ang Pilipinas, mabuhay ang panunulat ni Doreen Fernandez at ni Ed Alegre, at lalong mas masarap mabuhay bilang Pinoy, hindi lamang sa pagbabasa ng mga to, pero sana kainin natin yung mga kinain nila. Maraming salamat po.
I'm Christian Henson. I'm the art director on Sarap and on various things for Exploding Galaxies with Giel, who's in the audience. And I think it's very apt that this exhibition is called Living Culture, because I think it was like, so important to, as Exploding Galaxies, we're really talking about our history of our people, but it can't be stale, can't be stagnant. We need to kind of look at our history in order to innovate and both respect what has been made, but also create a path for current and future voices. And I think no other art form than the culinary arts has been really pushing it for us recently. And this book really is, in terms of the design, like about bridging generations. As we move forward, we have to look back. And it's such a really great moment to look at Doreen's writing now, especially as Filipino food, as we see right now in the contemporary food world, it's having a moment, right? It's like trending. But how can it trend unless we look at the roots of the matter? And so, yeah, this is really about honoring that tradition, but at the same time, show how it's evolving, how it's living. And so, I don't want to speak for the editorial staff, but it was very faithfully edited, very, very respectful, very, very light, just minor things to just kind of clean things up and just kind of lift what was already there. But at the same time, there was really great opportunity with republishing to look at the artwork now. And already, like how in the previous books by Exploding Galaxies, it kind of paved the way for new design within the main line. But this is a new line that we're endeavoring in the nonfiction, and specifically looking into food books, food literature. And so while we admire the work by Daniel Villamor, also excuse my accent, I'm Filipino American. It was really exciting to see like where can we take this now? And so part of what an art director does is sort of tries to imagine the mood or the direction of the piece. Because as much as I would like to, I'm not actually contributing all the artwork for the piece. And so the overarching concept that we created was an ancestral home, or a Bahay ni Lola, Bahay ni Lolo. But what would Doreen's or what would Ed's be? And I mean, you lived in the house, so I'm imagining your house. And for me, it would be, obviously they're so articulate, well-researched, there would be all this history, but because of who they are, it would be joyous, wild, strange knickknacks from obscure corners of the world, like things from common everyday life, but accentuated because it was in their home. And so we wanted to have that eclecticness, that timelessness reflected in the design, and also as a way of, again, pushing forward without having to alienate. We wanted to respect, but at the same time, show evolution. And so currently at the moment, there is a really great pool of talent that we have here in the Philippines in terms of illustration. And so rather than finding one singular voice like in the original Sarap, we pulled from a really big, it was really hard to edit actually, and we came down to 4 artists to tell this story, and the power of illustration to take Doreen and Ed's writing and bring it forward and translate it through their lived experience. And so I just want to give out a shout out to the 4 artists. So Gian Encarnacion, is she here? Is she here? Oh, she's in the compound somewhere having food probably. But her work, if you look at it, is like very detailed, very ornate. It almost feels like a tapestry come to life. And that is reflected in some of her commercial work. She's done work for Hermes, like some of the scarves and some campaign stuff. And so I think that that was a really great starting point. And from there, we worked with Elle Shivers, who is an illustrator and a comic book artist. And because she does comic books, we thought that kind of time-based storytelling could also give an extra dimension into her pieces. And she also manages the Manila Illustration Fair. Also, we have Eva Yu, whose work is very fluid and dreamlike, very surreal and experimental, and she includes a lot of mechanical and material error in her process. So her approach is a bit more, let's just say, experimental than the others. And then finally, Kitty Hardenell, whose work is very graphic, and she's a printmaker. She owns a letterpress, and I feel like that graphic, almost storybook style really worked for the glossary section. So keep your eye for that section as well. And so, yeah, what I love about working with this big group, it was like sort of managing and sculpting it, but like in the same way that we also channel the spirit that with Sarap, it was Doreen and Ed working together, but working separately, working in tandem and collaborating, but in their own voices. And so I also wanted to capture that with the artists. So as you can tell, each of them have a style that's unique, but they have to work in chorus. So we wanted to create harmony, confluence, but at the same time, allow for dissonance, cacophony, create this really big wall of sound in terms of visuals. But I also like kind of pairing this with as a food metaphor. Actually, my tita's here, and I wanted to shout her up. But she always said that the Filipino palate is actually one of the most complex. She actually studied at the Cordon Bleu, and they had to currently tame down her style to fit the French style, but it's really quite remarkable in the way that we create interesting combinations. Like I always think about mango with bagaong, or like delice with champorado. That's pretty crazy. So I just feel like, and right now, like I saw something on TikTok, like cheese ice cream. This is crazy. What a unique innovation. Like you guys are way behind. And fermentation, which is having a moment. That is such a deep part of the way we cook. And so I think that we wanted to have that feeling of complexity, again, with the amount of artists, with different stylings that combine, and with Ed and Doreen's writing. Because again, as kind of marking in some of the design, that I also like using cooking metaphors, because my family is from Pampanga, so I also do like to cook. And so we want to, when you build flavor, right, you build it in layers. That's how you build umami. That's how you build a broth. And so for me, Doreen and Ed's writing is the stock. It's the bones. And then these artists are sort of like aromatics, like top notes that accentuate the base. And for me, in terms of my role, was sort of, shepherding them along. But you'll notice that the typography looks pretty, I hate to say traditional, but yeah, it's very calm typography, because I think we had to set the stage to allow the wilder elements of the book to shine. Altogether, we commissioned 30 plus illustrations. Some of them are like, as you can see here, like these sheets of flash sheets. So I would say in total, maybe it would have been like 60 or 80. To combine, and that's in order to, there's these main illustrations here, like this is by L. Shivers, but throughout the book you'll see these little spot illustrations, and in a way they create these little surprises, almost like when you're, when it's a more deeper dish, like there'll be extra notes as you eat along, and so we want to add these little surprises as you read. And so, if I have to, in wrapping it up, as Lankat mentioned, I find that what's so important about Doreen and Ed's writing is that they're really trying to find ourselves through our food and through what we eat. And I feel like that should be never ending. The moment you find a crumb or some lead or an answer, it actually leads to another question. It should be this continual curiosity. And so I hope that this book isn't just, it's a living, right? It's a living document, not a Bible, that this will spur more curiosity, more experience, more self-discovery for yourself and us as a people. So thank you.
My name is Jilson Tiu. I'm the photographer for the book Palayok. I just want to share the journey of how I photographed the book and include my personal journey din sa ano ba talaga yung how I shoot in the street. Kasi I used to work for Philippine Daily Inquirer. I'm a photojournalist there for almost 5 to 7 years. And most of the time, they would assign me sa assignments about human interest. So I didn't know until Mara approached me. I didn't know that my whole street photography, documentary photography, and anything that I do is, all about food. And I was shocked when I was looking at my portfolio and archives. Kasi, first of all, I just want to thank the Exploding Galaxies team for helping me dissect the book and giving me the right ingredients, what to photograph, how to, it helped me develop how I approach the book, how I photograph new stuff at the same time jive with my old archives from not so old. Siguro pinaka-old dun siguro mga 2014 na photos. And dun sa archives ko, I saw a lot of fishing. I saw a lot of documenting how the food is made, how people gather through food. So I found that ultimately, as everyone, we all gather over food. So yun yung parang pinaka-importanting bagay. We make culture out of food. We make festivals out of food. We make intangible, both tangible and intangible heritage gamit ang pagkain. And napakayaman ng Pilipinas sa bagay na yun. And Doreen, I want to thank Doreen for helping me appreciate the Philippines more. I've traveled from Batanes to Davao in photographing all of these books from Nazarene, covering the Black Nazarene, of what they eat and how balut enriches their diwa before they go to the mismong procession. So I just want to thank Doreen of helping me rediscover my work through this book. And this book, it gives before I photograph the book, I browse the old book. I look at the photos of the old book, and I want to give justice to it. And I don't want to make it na parang, this is better, this is not, this is old, this is new. No, I think it jives in conjunction of what, how timeless Doreen's words are, or how timeless she made the book. Because I wanted to meld the new photograph, like 2000s, all 2000s photographs, to these old words, not old, timeless words. Mineld ko siya in a way na it jives together like sausawan, suka, toyo, nag-jive together yung inasal. And also we went to Doreen's house, and I want to thank Rina, hello, for touring me around Silay, giving me tips saan kumakain si Doreen, saan siya tumatakbo nung bata siya, ano yung pinakalumang palengke sa Silay. And yung pinakalumang palengke doon ay gigibain ngayong taon. So, buti na abutan ko pa siya. So, actually, parang nandun siya sa Pamaypay. Yung nakasulat, Eatery. So that's the oldest market in Silay. And wala. It's a rediscovery of how we appreciate food today. Hindi lang yung parang napapanood natin sa TikTok, napapanood natin sa Facebook na ay punta tayo dito kasi masarap. Punta tayo dito kasi ano. Ito yung how food ties everything up together. And ayun, thank you for Exploding Galaxies for bringing these two books together that magkaiba siya eh. It's like, yun nga, sabi ko, suka at toyo or inasal at sausawan. Ayun, salamat.
No, I just wanted to say thanks again, and thanks to the WHYNoT team for having us. There will be another talk, Baby Will Fill You In. But I just also wanted to say there's plenty happening today in Karrivin. So there's things happening on the 6th floor, the 5th floor here, the 2nd floor, and also along the alley. So so thank you guys.
So a boundless fermentation is a metaphor for Filipino gastronomy. Like the process, there are no absolute boundaries and rigid categories. And once again, as Doreen and Edilberto continually state, they force us to revisit, transform, indigenize, preserve, and endure. Gastronomy being the relationship between food and culture, we'd like to start with a quote from the book as a jump-off point for our guests. How is a people's taste shaped?
Okay, so when you talk about tastes, no, you can look at it from a physiological and also an evolutionary viewpoint, no. And when you look at the study showing what tastes evolved first, no, you will see, for example, that yung preference for salty and for sweet came much later in the evolution of humans. Mas nauna pa yung bitter and acidic, no. So the paleontologists saw, no, that merong certain animals even before us evolved a sense to detect acidity, because acidity is something that would be bad for our bodies. Now, very interesting in the case of the Philippines, dahil nga yung sourness is something that is pleasurable for many Filipinos. Of course, may regional differences yan. Pero, you will see that the taste, no, people's taste is also shaped by their geography and also cultural experience, no. So you can look at it from that parang physiological, evolutionary point of view, but also look at it geographically and socially. So, what do you think about ano yung tastes ng diners mo? Like, is it evolving from the classical Filipino to baka it's getting more parang international or something like that?
It's a pretty big. I think it's a pretty big. Question actually to ask. Have tastes evolved, or I think they're constantly evolving for sure. If you look at, I think, the general tolerance for sweetness and salt, I think we're all generally, intaking way too much sugar and way too much salt in general. You can just go and check with all of our doctors. I think the same problems reoccur. We're all getting more diabetic. We all have high blood pressure. And this is definitely, we're definitely hit with it due to the fact that it's constantly present. There's always a little bit of sugar here. Corn syrup is just about everywhere. Salt, people have realized that salt and umami, actually, these two things, because they kind of work in conjunction, was a way you can actually create huge boosts of flavor very cheaply. So of course for industrials, it's a massive win. If you look at how we consume, anything from like cup noodles to, even just fast food in general, the cheaper it is, not only the more salt content there is, just because it's really important. Just because it's a cheap fix for us. It sort of hits all of our reward systems, I believe. So yes, I mean, everything has evolved. And in restaurants, we have to be very conscious of that. I mean, if we were to cook today, I guess the way we should be eating in general, most of our restaurants would probably fail. Actually, that's the reality of it. So a restaurant, I think that food we serve in a restaurant, or in restaurants in general, they have to almost match the pleasure points that people are looking for.
About tastes of different cultures, even different families, maybe different individuals. Like, it's quite subjective, but I think you can see patterns in taste also. Like, as someone who's been doing development and food, farming work for a long while, relative to my age, I guess. Like, you can really see that number one, the the kind of scope of what people consider to be famine foods is much larger. Like, people used to have more tolerance for slight bitterness, for like astringency, much more. And now, like, the tolerance is really low, even in farming communities. So much so that things like cassava, which are on even the lighter astringency and bitterness scale of root crops, is something that they don't prefer to eat anymore. So I understand. I grew up here in Parañaque, so my tastes are fairly like coastal lowland person. But the tastes can rapidly evolve just as a response to what's available. And I think in general, people will always veer towards what's sweeter and easier to digest, I suppose. Like, it's human nature to want more refined things, I suppose. So yeah, like, it's pretty cultural. Like, for example, another example of variation in taste is we have a vinegar tasting downstairs in my store, and the upstairs, I'm sorry. The Visayan, at least in Negros Oriental and Northern Mindanao, people prefer very young vinegar. So vinegar that still tastes strongly of tuba or of yeast, while we in the Tagalog region like things that are more purely sour, I guess, or really sour. So when I first did work in Mindanao, in Cagayan de Oro, I was really, really shocked to taste their vinegar, because for me it tasted like bread. No, there was so much, like, for me, like, residual yeastiness in it. But actually, when people from Negros taste our vinegar, sometimes they're like, parang it's off. There's something off about it already. And another is like the addition of astringents. Like, for example, in Kinilaw, some places they find astringency to be a good note, and in some places wala. So I think these things are shaped by the environment, of course, right? Like, for example, tuba is abundant year-round, so they actually get they don't have to store so much as vinegar the whole year round. But also, it's also really a cultural preference. Like, if we try to find a reason for everything we can, but sometimes people just like what they like. So yeah, it's just beautiful to see how varied the methods of production and preferences are around the Philippines.
Rina, as a Negrense, we know how proud they are of their regional products, and especially as a slow food advocate, I think she would probably also have a lot to say.
As a provinciana, we like our food, how do I say it? It's always exaggerated. It's either that's why in Ilonggo, we always repeat a word if we like something. Like, if it's namit, it's good, but if it's super good, it's namit namit, right? Kanamit gid, or so there's always how do you say it? We like to exaggerate, and what is alive and still persistent in our diet is aslum na vinegar, or batuan, especially batuan. Now, because of slow food, we've recognized and we're trying to remember all the different kinds of souring agents that we have, like katmon. I don't know if you know katmon. I only learned it when I became a slow food advocate. And even our lowly kamyas, which we call iba, that nobody even sells in the market. There's no value in it, but it grows everywhere. That's one of the best paasim in our soups and our dishes. So taste is really where you come from and what you grew up with. So my memories of eating, in my childhood memories is always, it has to be aslum gid. If you want to serve kadyos baboy langka or kansi, all the food that there are certain dishes that a certain ingredient must be used. Like iba is only for pinaksyo. Some don't use batuan with it. But across the street in our house, where Tita Doreen, I always remember Tita Doreen, my Lola, her mother, Lola Alicia. That's why I'm named Doreen Alicia from both of them. And it would always be Tita Doreen, Lola, Alicia, and my mom. When there is ulos ang alimusan, I don't know if you know alimusan, it's the big eel, river eel, and it's made into paksiw with batuan. Now you see them at the table, putting out their reading glasses because they're about to eat the head of the alimusan, which has, according to Tita Doreen, the fish head has 7 flavors in it. So it's like doing an operation, and they eat it with, how do I say it, with fervor. Walang paki sa world. They have to enjoy their ulos ang alimusan with a little Rufina patis. So that's how we are. That's how the Negrenses are in the way we eat. And I think also in different places, right? We have memories of what our grandmothers used to serve, and our moms, and of course our favorite cooks, all those cooks that would live with us for 20, 30 years, which we don't have anymore. So these are beautiful memories that have shaped our culture and our taste, and something that we want to make our children remember and let them know how it is, how it was, because that is our culture. That is what defines us to be Ilonggos, for example. Am I correct, Professor Ray?
So maybe we can talk about how this idea of how things are grown in certain places, like Rina said, interfaces with the practice of the culinary arts, Steph, and your and what you have in Métis and then Automat.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I mean, once again, to talk about this is once again a vast discussion on a lot of things, but essentially we can talk about, I mean, if you look at seasonality, okay, so, or even preservation, I mean, so when I can talk about right now, for example, there's like rambutan, okay, so rambutan is on its sort of like on its tail end season, okay, as of now. I'm guessing that, well, what I guess a lot of our grandmothers used to do, okay, is you would get a bountiful amount of rambutan, and you'd have to preserve it. You'd have to do something with it. So vinegars are probably made with it. It's possible that it was burod as well, okay, turned into buro. There's so many, I mean, you had to basically use it in different ways, so maybe even cooking down, turn it into preserves, etc. And that's what I guess we try to do at the restaurant, from, I guess, everything from like, we try to look at all the different fermentation techniques for preservation, you know, everything from buro to vinegar to even just, I guess, more modern things such as cooking down with sugar, for example. And we just sort of let that, and we sort of keep that so that we have it anytime we want on the menu. Not under fresh forms, but under preserved forms. And we try to do that with almost all fruits and certain vegetables that come in at all times.
I'd like to add to that, because in slow food, our advocacy of good, clean, and fair food for all, one of the most important how do I say it? A fact that a principle. Thank you. So one of our principles is really seasonality. So we have to celebrate the seasonality of any ingredient. No, it cannot be the world of today says everything must be available right now at the time that I need it and every day when the customer wants it. But naturally, it is not so. So that's why we have fermentation and making things into jam and things like that so that we can preserve and, of course, not waste the food. So seasonality is really important, and that's how it is connected to our culture and to our way of fermenting local ingredients that we have in any of our communities.
Sige, interesting yung seasonality kasi if you look at, I'm going to go back again to yung maasim na preference ng mga Pilipino. It's, how do you say it? Parang I've tried and studied it. Why do we like sourness? And it's not something that is found in many other cultures. So parang when you say something is sour, ayaw yan. They don't like it in other cultures. And yun nga, parang the earliest reports of the Spanish friars of the Filipinos were saying, ano ba itong mga Pilipinong to, hindi pa hinog yung mangga. The mango's still green, they're already eating it, no? And then, so, I've thought about a couple of theories. One is that parang sourness has more vitamin C and then it makes you more healthy. Pero if you look at suka, like vinegar, there's no vitamin C in that. So my other theory also is yung cleansing. Parang if you put something acidic in your food, it cleanses it and it also helps preserve it, di ba? And then when I went to Silay, remember in that forest where they had the 4 types of batuan, I was talking to the custodian, the guard that so yeah, in Suibatu, there's this old guy who I was talking about batuan, and then he's like, it wasn't in season then, no? And we were talking about it, and then parang, bakit nga ba? Parang why do we like to eat the batuan? Parang sour. We don't want to wait for it, just like mangosteen, to get ripe, no? Tapos sabi niya, alam mo, if you wait for the batuan to get ripe, it will all be eaten by the bats already. So when you look at our taste siguro, it's shaped by, you can say the landscape, but there's also this aspect of parang interacting or competing with other animals, no? So feeling ko nga baka mamaya yung kapitbahay nung may-ari ng mangga, no? Kukunin na yun kaagad. So kukunin ko na to at kakainin ko na lang. Parang gano'n, no? So eto, with the bats and the birds, no, in Silay with the batuan, no? That's why siguro because we took it already, we had to find a way to appreciate it, and that's where we started liking sour stuff. Diba?
So how did you like the sour and the salt?
The salt kasi we really need it eh. Diba? You need parang merong evolutionary purpose why we like certain things and we don't like certain things, diba? So we have a craving for sweet things because sugar is energy, no? We like salt because if you don't have salt, your nervous system will malfunction kasi di ba may sodium, potassium, iron, etc.
The pairing of, let's say, it's always so good to eat something sour like unripe mangoes or katmon, anything that's sour, and then you put some salt and it just is so good. So why?
Okay.
For us, for Filipinos.
Baka nga yun yung balancing, or di ba kunwari parang some people yung in English, no, yung kabaliktaran nung the antonym, no, of sweet is bitter, di ba? Pero sa atin yung antonym, yung kabaliktaran ng sweet is sour. Tama ba? Oo.
Yeah.
Ay, oo nga, maalat pala. Oo, salt. Okay. So anyway, so feeling ko, it's the parang I don't know. Bakit nga ba?
Ige, may masasabi ka ba?
Actually, interesting yung the whole Filipino preference for salt as sourness because I feel like where I live in Negros Oriental, it's just not true. Like people really don't like very sour things. And the kinilaw there has astringent astringent ingredients. And in fact, like, there are no two families there that have the same kinilaw recipe. They use green mango, kamyas, vinegar, suwa, biasong. They use so many ingredients, and sometimes they pair it with an astringent. It's not just dungon or tabon-tabon. They also use putot. Yung very young coconut, that's still very astringent. They use mangrove fruit, yung seed pala, they chop it up. They use mangrove bark. So it's almost like this because astringency is more a sensation than a taste. So it's almost like this kind of very consistent cultural preference for astringency. Just like Ilocanos like bitter things, people from Negros, Oriental, and Northern Mindanao like astringency. They also like fruit that's manibalang. Like, when I eat papaya, everyone's like, yuck, like, parang, it's so ripe. And me, as a Tagalog, I'm like, what? But they really like matigas na fruits. Like, they don't like sweet guava, they don't like sweet papaya. Like, it's very interesting for me. And as it's often unexpressed in books and in resources. So when I moved there, I was really taken aback for other people it might not be major, but for me it was so major, like this preference for astringency and also like unripe fruit. Because when you go to the carinderia, you'll see the food is just the same. It's adobo, kinilaw. But when you go to people's kitchens, walang dungon. They'll look for the bark of the duhat tree. Like the bark of the guava tree. They'll look for an astringent. And they're like, basta kasi it tastes better. So, but when we did test these astringents, like, because we made vinegar with and without them, because you infuse them, they actually kind of round out the acidity, and they also they make the fish more firm. So it's not just the langsa, the texture of the fish, it's more firm. So I guess it, like it has things, and yeah, it's so subtle. And I find it interesting that the younger people from there also now, they don't, because it's not talked about. So the younger people don't even really know about it. They just eat and eat, which is nothing wrong with that, but yeah.
Sige, Chef,
Yeah.
have you experimented with astringency in what you cook?
Not as much as I should, apparently. So now I should, yeah. I will look into it. I mean, bitterness is something I'm exploring a lot, which is still, it's like you were saying about the Ilocos and bitterness. In Manila, bitterness is considered a little strange. If you go down south, it's still a little bit frowned upon when you find it in in food. So we work with Ampalaya, definitely. And for the first time, actually, ever since we reopened the restaurant, I'm actually putting ampalaya bits now in food. Something I didn't used to do that before. I would introduce it as oil. I would infuse it to actually sort of extract that greenness and bitterness. And now we're actually putting bits, ampalaya bits to say, hey, this is a part of our cuisine. We're embracing it. Accept the bitterness. Astringency will be next.
Pakla. Sorry, astringency is pakla.
Pakla.
So unripe banana, maybe apples have astringency, and
Persimmon.
yeah, persimmons, unripe potatoes, mga ganun. Ige has a question.
Ige has a question, sige.
No, I read your essay about your adobo essay in the Cordilleras, and you mentioned that in the north they don't like the super asim, and then I have several questions actually. So one for Ray and then one for Bea. Like with our experience in Southeast Asia, when we were in Bali together for the Ubud Food Festival, we discovered that they don't have suka in Bali. They have chuka. So we had to what do you call this? Smuggle several kinds of suka for the cooking demo, diba? And then she had a tasting workshop na suka, no. So why is that prevalence of suka only in? I don't know. No? I mean, I'm not really experienced with Southeast Asian cuisine, but there's a smattering of it, no. So why is that? Like we have that penchant for suka, and then for slow food, are you promoting suka in your is vinegar part already of arc of taste, and then what kind of vinegar? Because apparently you can make vinegar out of banana, etc. And then for dami, no? Sorry, no. Feeling moderator. And then for because I'm really interested about suka. No? So have you used a lot of suka in your restaurant, like highlighting the really sour flavor in your food, especially, like your Filipino French background? How is vinaigrette used in French cuisine as opposed to vinaigrette in the Philippine setting? So those are my questions.
Ang dami. Okay, start na muna siguro ako about in the north, no? Hindi naman in the north like Ilocos. So I'm talking about the Cordillerans. So what I noticed is that they don't like suka, or they don't like sour things actually. At yung explanation naman nakakatawa, it's because they chew moma. You know what moma is? The betel quid. Tapos because they chew the betel quid, it erodes their gums. So yung roots ng teeth nila get sensitive. So when you consume something sour, it becomes painful. That's why siguro eventually talagang they removed anything sour from their cuisine. So kunwari, if yun yung kwento ko, that when they make adobo there, it's not a real adobo dahil wala siyang suka. There's no acidic anything there. It's just toyo and then black pepper. So yun. So you really have to dig into why parang you just have to parang to guess why people like certain things eh. So yan.
Why do we love vinegar? Honestly, I don't know why we love it, but it just like most of our vinegars here are spontaneously fermented. That means that they just leave it and it becomes vinegar. So there's barely any inoculation unless you go in the higher elevations when they have to put yeast starters, because it just happens so naturally. So the heat, because it's not like in other countries na we have to add sugar to our toddy. So a lot of our vinegars come from palm toddies, which are like coconut toddy, kaong toddy, nipa toddy. And toddy it's not juice. It's not coconut juice, but rather it's nectar. So they cut the inflorescence off and they collect the nectar that drips. And can you compare collecting coconut toddy to collecting maple syrup? I mean maple sap. It's such an easy process. Like collecting maple sap is just so labor intensive. You have to do it in the winter, everything. But for us, capturing sourness and sweetness is just so easy. Even sugarcane, in terms of sweetness, the yield is so high. So it's quite easy for us to make these things. In fact, from the same base product, you get alcohol, drinking alcohol, and then later it progresses to vinegar. So I just think that if we have such abundant palms, we have such abundant cane, kasi you can make vinegar from a number of different palms, from buri, kaong, nipa, coconut. So for me, it's more like, why not? Why wouldn't we be voracious consumers of this thing that we produce so effortlessly? Yun nga, spontaneous production, it's hot, it's so bioactive to the point that you can't even transport it on an airplane because tuba is gonna explode. It's so alive. You don't have to watch it, put it at a certain temperature. It just happens. So, but the question is, why not Indonesia? Like, for me, when I go to a place like Indonesia and there's so much coconut also, I'm like, why do you not use these things for souring? It's sometimes I think it's because a large population doesn't drink alcohol. Because it's the same process as tuba. So I don't know, but that's that. Yeah.
Tuba, the way the Mexicans, is that true? The Mexicans adopted the fermentation to make their alcohol also in the 1800s.
There were Filipino, I think in Colima, is it Colima? There were Filipino seafarers who relocated there during the galleon trade. And they actually taught the Mexicans how to make tuba and how to distill tuba into lambanog, right?
So the word tuba is apparently part of their,
the same.
but they don't have any meaning to it. It's just about fermentation.
No, they use coconuts also.
Oh, yeah,
in a specific. It's literally the same process with the same plant. So in that specific area, they still consume it. But they say also that Filipinos taught Mexicans how to make tequila.
Yeah.
Yeah, because of that. Because we were already making lambanog and like maybe arak tibasi at the time. So when the Filipinos went there, because Mexicans make pulque, which is fermented agave, right? So out of pulque, they distilled tequila.
Okay.
Can I ask another question? Sorry.
No more.
Come on. Can we go back to seasonal when you said, so if we follow the seasonal foods, would it be better health-wise for the human being?
Of course, and not
course,
only
right.
the human being, it will make your biodiversity, the biodiversity and your environment very healthy. That's why it is important to appreciate seasonality. That's why we are against fast food, per se.
So I think Stefan.
Yeah, we want to circle back to Steph to answer Ige Ramos's question. Unless we forgot it already. Ige, what is your question?
Why suka?
The use of vinegar, which, yeah.
We actually make a lot of vinegars. That's actually, I think it was one of the founding points of like our restaurant, because once again of the statement that sourness sort of defines, well, it leads up a big part of Tagalog, flavors anyway. So vinegars, we've been making vinegars since the get-go. Every time a fruit is in season, once again, we gather it, we take it up, we turn it into a pulp, and then we let that ferment naturally into wine, and then we oxygenate, the wine to let it turn into vinegar. So it's a process that takes a while, actually, especially because we do big vats of that. So it smells. It's kind of a cool process. And at the restaurant, the vinegars we use, about I'd say 90% are from our own making, and nothing is. Obviously we try to stay. It's one of the issues also with, once again, industrialization. Nowadays the classic vinegars you're gonna find, it's white vinegar, it's sugarcane vinegar, and that's about pretty much it. That's what you find in supermarkets. And so we wanted to really re-explore, to explore, I guess, our cuisine, which is what, Métis is about, was to go back and to realize that actually we had a big array of flavors that are lost now because of convenience. And once again, because everything is dictated by big industries, whatever is easy, whatever makes money, whatever is cheap. And that's what we're going back into, I guess, the lost art of vinegar making. So yes, vinegar is present throughout our menu. We use it almost everywhere. going back to the way the French do it, I mean, a vinaigrette, I mean, it's usually a vinegar or citrus with oil, you know, I mean, at its very basic foundation. We do use ideas of vinaigrette, but the reason why, because actually in Filipino cooking, you don't really make vinaigrettes. You don't mix oil. No, when you make a salad, you actually blanch your greens and you throw in some vinegar and maybe some salt, some patis or bagong even. The only reason why I use a little bit of oil sometimes is because fat is a vector of flavor. So I just use it to expand, you know, to create mouthfeel essentially. But a lot of times, but the vinegars in general, sometimes we use them as sprays, we use them as droplets here and there. So a lot of times without oil, you know. And sometimes when you want to brighten up food, also like sauces, we'll use reduced vinegar from our vegetables, just add it to a sauce to just wake it up a little bit. So many uses actually for vinegar to how it really just opens up flavor in general, I think.
Excuse me. May I? No, I have a question. No? Kasi, for example, Thai food has to have 4 flavors in every dish. I mean, they always have to be sweet, sour, hot, spicy, and salty, right? And I mean everything, even their desserts, di ba? Now, iniisip ko lang kasi ours, parang I've been wondering about this ever since I was growing up. I was saying, why does it seem like our cuisine is very simple? It's either sweet or sour or bitter, but it never seems to be a combination thereof, except when it's sour and salty, like when you have patis with sinigang, or when you have no. That's one question that I've been trying to figure that out in my head. Second is ingredients. Wansoy is so common to this country, and yet it's only lately that we've been using it. I don't know why. I mean, that's so strange. And in conjunction with that, there are so many different kinds of citrusy flavors. And of course, calamansi is our favorite, right? Because it's the most easily grown. But you know what I really miss? Dayap, which is so different from lemon and so different from, and the lemon that's being brought into the country has practically killed the dayap industry, which is really sad, right? Because there are things that you can do with dayap that you can't do with lemon or calamansi. I don't know what my question is there, but it's somewhere there. It's somewhere there. So my question is why are our flavors simple, given the complexity of our environment? That's one. Two, where has all the dayap gone? God knows I want to make key lime pie. And then the other question is why have we never used stuff like wansoy, for example? Okay.
Yun po, Sir Bart, yung sa balance of flavors in Thai cuisine, what we have to understand is historically, yung popular Thai cuisine that we know, it was parang not really manufactured, pero parang culturally constructed. Yeah. So parang when the Thais wanted to promote Thai cuisine around the world, they said it has to be, parang they constructed it based on the food of the royal court eh. So kaya may ganung mga But if you go to like other parts of Thailand, medyo simple din yung yung lasa nila. Ano pa ba? Yung dayap in Baguio, there's so many types of lemons. Yung parang, syempre meron din dong mga imported, pero there's so much lemon there na iba-iba kasi nga, di ba very ang hilig mag-cross-pollinate nung lemon. So you have so many different kinds of lemons in Baguio. Tapos, ano pa ba? Can anyone else answer? Ano pa ba yung isa? Yung bakit simple? Yung terno-terno, tono-tono. I think it's not in one dish, pero we assemble complementary dishes Doon nga galing yung sinasabi ni Tita na bakit gusto natin ng sweet and salty. Parang meron tayong, sour na mangga and then salty na bagoong. Parang, it's not in one dish, pero magkakahiwalay sila. Pero we eat them together. May mga bagay-bagay. Kunwari, kare-kare, bagay talaga siya sa bagoong. Tapos kailangan merong adobo, no? Or something like that.
With the dayap, I think what happened there, my personal theory, being a slow food advocate, is so many foreign fruits just came in. And we Filipinos, basta it's Western, basta it's not ours, we like it more, di ba? We're willing to buy the tamarind of Thailand na napakamahal than buy the vendor's tamarind from his garden, for example. So, when the demand goes down, sometimes then the farmer will not take care of it. That's why with slow food, our advocacy is to first map back to Ige's question on Arc of Taste. Arc of Taste is an online catalog where we register local ingredients, local dishes, or a local food process that made this appear. We record them. It's an online catalog to remind us that it is there, and whoever wishes to open it and read it might want to resurrect it. Because if we do, let's say there's a dish that we have forgotten and it will be resurrected, there will be again a demand. Maybe there's a dish that uses dayap specifically. If we get reminded of that dish and we want to resurrect it, the demand for dayap will go back. The farmer will take care of it again. That's why we always promote local ingredients and local dishes, because if not, the farmer will only plant lettuce because that's the only thing that they can sell at a high price, and that's not even food that they eat, which is unfair, which is, again, part of our advocacy. We want good, clean, and fair food for everyone, especially the farmer who is the one planting it. Imagine he plants lettuce, but that's not his diet, so he's not going to eat it. He's going to sell it, and if let's say there's a big harvest of lettuce and the price goes down, he can't even afford to buy his own food. So that's, I think, what happened with the dayap. That's why let us all promote our local ingredients. Even if you want to make it into something, mix it with other influences like how Stefan's doing it, but the heart is still there. The local ingredient will show you who you are. That's the Filipino in you that's going to come out there. So that's for me, that's what I think is the most important thing. Now with Arc of Taste, what was your question again, Ige? I forgot. The suka. With vinegar kasi, it is not in danger of getting lost yet because we use it a lot. The thing is, you have a point. Maybe we have to register it because we are not anymore using natural ingredients for our vinegar. The most convenient is the one in the supermarket, which is not real tuba. It's not real from coconut or any kind of palm. Yeah, it's all acetic acid already. So there, yes, you're right. Maybe we should register it. Another thing is, because of our advocacy, we also, and because of abundancy in something that we discover. For example, now cacao is in demand. So we have many cacao farmers now in Negros Occidental. Then they discover that when they ferment it, first you make the moisture. You gather the moisture, you make it drip, and we discovered it's beautiful cacao juice that you have there. But after 4 hours, it's cacao vinegar, and it's one of the most unusual tasting kind of vinegar that a lot of chefs have discovered. I don't know if you've tried it. You've done. Explain the taste of cacao vinegar. I don't know how to describe the difference, let's say, between cacao vinegar and tuba, for example.
Well, I think it's the mucilage is very. I mean, it's extraordinarily fruity to begin with. So it's a very fruity, sour vinegar. I think compared to like tuba, which is a bit more yeasty and I mean, there's a bit more of a yeast-forward flavor that seems to come out of it. A bit more mineral, actually, I'd say tuba. Versus,
so does it give you a chance to create something different, something
Yeah, of course,
I-
of course.
in a
I mean,
dish,
you can use
right?
it completely
Yeah.
differently. I mean, if you use it like if you were to make an adobo with tuba vinegar
It
and cacao, you know,
tastes
the flavor would be completely
yes,
different.
yes. So that's what we mean by arc of taste.
I just
I
want,
just
yeah,
want to add
yeah,
one more thing.
Stefan.
I just want to go back to what you're saying about Filipino food, versus Thai cuisine, the simplicity, how it feels simple. I think that the source material of Filipino food is actually not simple at all. The source material, I mean, like Filipino food, how it used to be, is actually just as complex as the rest of Southeast Asia in general. If not, on par. If not, sometimes even more complex in certain areas because, for our cuisine, if you compare it 50 years back, back versus Southeast Asia, we're actually hitting almost all of the notes that you have within an entire. These are different countries, no, that actually come up to. They all have to come up together to actually hit our notes over like one country only. I think that the base, like I said, the source material is quite complex actually for the Philippines. The only part is that we're in danger it's in danger of becoming simplified. It's in danger of becoming simplified, I think, through standardization. So that's one of the issues we have. But even just the way we mix things together, everybody, we all eat our food with sawsawans, that's very personal, right? And we all have it very differently. So let's say your base adobo that you have, we all have a base adobo. We could all have a very different experience with the adobo based on the sawsawans that we each individually put in, eat it with. So I think we have to remember that we actually like to personalize our food to our tastes, to all very different varying degrees actually of it. So quite complex actually in general.
Thanks, Stefan. I was really going to ask that for you to answer that question. I just wanted to circle back to Bea about when you were talking about if something is in demand, that's what the farmers produce or whatever. So in Bea's role as bringing this ingredients and products to the market, and you were talking about the palenque the other day, and we had something about the palenque there. Could you lean into how, this products can be made readily available?
I think that I would gladly sacrifice my business for the health of palenques throughout the country, because I think just by making investments in palenques and even if it's like once a week tabos, everything, really connecting producers, not just middlemen or consolidators with palenques, the effect on our cuisine will be really, really, really large. Because it's really different now na if you sell in the palenque, you need such a variety to even make your money back. Whereas before, you could see that, for example, it's cucumbers. You have cucumbers, then you have several marginal stuff. And I think our weakness as a country is not being so cognizant of the marginal things, like the things that are grown on empty lots, common lots. Like, kunyari, you cut a tree of karmay, which is like parang kamyas. Parang, too bad, but it's marginal eh. It's not like, it's not something that we think about all the time. And like before, because when I started doing non-profit work, wala pang dato puti na nasa sachet. So, you could really see that there were more souring agents for sale, more trees that were parang encouraged volunteer trees na, you don't plant them, but they grow there and you use them. And I think that because we're so adaptable as a country, like if we don't have calamansi, we'll use lemon. If we don't have batuan, we'll use calamansi. Parang, I think it's more like because we understand the recipes, we can riff around them. So it's like we don't really, it's not that we don't value the marginal ingredients, but we don't really think about them that much. Parang out of sight, out of mind, diba? So often when we do like talks or mapping in communities, they'll be like, yeah, I remember that ingredient, but I have no idea where I could find it na. So I think, like instead of thinking about, because my stores are, I have a store here and in Dumaguete, and my reach is not very big. And I'm sure Stefan also, as a restaurant, you want to do a lot, but your reach is also not huge, right? So, but if we as a country really try to do it together and prop up our palenques, prop up our small farmers, make it affordable for them to sell their own stuff, make it affordable for them to sell a variety of things instead of just one thing, and then maybe connecting the carinderias, the school system, government procurement, then maybe these things can be in broader circulation. And it's not just that. Of course, like, there's no like quick recipe for that, but I think it's a combination of people celebrating it and people relearning the variety of foods to cook. Because you have to remember that there's so many migrants to Manila, to other countries. So in many places, there's like a broken thread of culture. And a lot of the people don't know how to cook the same thing anymore. So I think when we talk to people, sometimes they want to go to the city because there's a variety of food. Like, they don't want to eat the same thing over and over again. So I think it's really important also to revisit the lost recipes in a joyful way, in a way that people feel abundance because they're surrounded by ingredients, not just because they can afford to choose from different kinds of food. So I wouldn't even call it specifically a supply chain problem, because sometimes we tend to think na we need more people in the city to buy this. But actually, yeah, it's a cultural gap. It's a cultural gap. Yeah. And like no retail store, no chef can save the farmers. Like the farmers, kasi we always think na we're helping the farmers, but actually it's quite the opposite. And we as the higher income people from Manila can't really save the whole agricultural industry of the country, or not even of Luzon. So I guess we have to start being smarter in supporting the infrastructure. I consider palenques to be part of the infrastructure of the food supply. Like for example, in Manila, people don't even know how the food gets into Manila. Like every day, so many jeeps, trucks come in to Divisoria from Bicol, etc. Like, we think that it's so straightforward, but in fact, I have not seen a single formal study on the food supply of Manila. And in the palenque, if you go to a specific palenque, you'll find that some get deliveries from middlemen, some get deliveries from one guy with a jeep from Quezon. Like it's, or a consolidator, or, like, it's so opaque to people. And to think that we can solve it by consuming. Of course, relationships we have to individual farmers, co-ops are important, but really, we can't really save these things. Like, there's so many structural issues around it. The commodification of vegetables, like which is what Slow Food is trying to go propose solutions to. So there's so many things, like serious things, and there's climate change, there's everything, and I feel like the culinary world needs to start addressing these problems instead of, being all foodie with it, because like, we're in an age of like systems collapse. I'm sorry to like. I'm so sorry. It's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I mean, there's so many crops that are failing. You know, there's so many crops that are failing. More vegetables are being commodified. What I mean by that is like the middleman dictates the variety, the price, everything. So yeah, so there's like the rise of the chop suey vegetables, which is like, you know, you go to markets and all you see are chop suey vegetables, and for us it's like we don't even notice it. But oh, what can I cook aside from chop suey or nilaga or something? So I mean, seeds. The issue of seeds are so important, and I feel like. Because, for example, when we go to abroad to talk about food, they're like, so why do you think Filipino food is not that trendy? And I'm like, come on, man. I mean, you know, we're like in the middle of this. I mean, we should be. That's why slow food is so important, because we don't know what food will be affected by climate change. We know that farmers are losing crops and they need to plant more root crops and stuff like that. We know that we need to plant diverse seeds because we don't know how commercial seeds are going to react to the climate and pests. So, I mean, these are things that are vital to the food industry, to food security, and they're addressing things that are happening right now. So, and the funny thing is, it all loops back to things that Doreen wrote, you know, like being local and stuff. I mean, so, but now, like, versus 10 years ago, 15 years ago, when we put up a store, it was like farm to table, you know, like, kind of like, you know, this whole thing, you're having a lunch in a farm, and there's like, you know, like burlap, tea lights and stuff. And, but now it's like more like, oh shit, you know, like, if I want to have an interesting life in a world where supply chains get disrupted, I need to learn how to cook alugbati in like 5 different ways, you know? So I think it's, I really hope to unporn food or unfoodie food because like, I think we're beyond that already. It's important to get people interested in it, but I think we're in an age where, you know, we need to get real with it now. Thank you.
I have a question. Like you were talking a while ago about famine food and seasonality, but is it all are flavors also influenced by climate? Like you were talking about astringency and vibrancy, and that's a sign of like vitamins. But like, and so, and then you know when it's hot, like. Where am I going with this one? Yeah, is it also the weather, basically? I found it interesting, for example, that as the temperatures get lower up there, they don't like sour food. So yeah, is it weather also that's affecting what we like to eat? Like, that's one of the theories behind sinigang, right? That it kept us, it cooled us down. So, yeah.
Well, I remember that's one of the articles that Tita Doreen wrote. That's one of the articles that I remember the most, because for her, sinigang is really what you eat when it's hot because it releases na nga your, how do I say it? It makes you feel cooler, in effect. However, when we go abroad naman and it's cold, di ba, it's so nice to eat sinigang, to have sinigang with rice. So, I don't know if it's the weather that's affecting the yearning to eat sinigang, if it's winter, let's say, or maybe it's yearning for real home that you're wanting. So I'm not sure which, but it does affect. I'm sure. I agree. It will affect the way you eat.
Ako naman yung theory ko dyan, parang mas, so there's that aspect of parang mas refreshing yung sinigang on a hot day. Pero kasi, if you look for example at, kunwari, mga European soups, they're very creamy, di ba? And if something's creamy, it's more calorific. It makes you feel warmer. Kaya, if you try and eat it on a summer day in the Philippines, parang hindi pangit yun. So yung lightness, feeling ko it's the lightness that we prefer during hot days eh. But also, di ba, the Spanish, ano ba yung summer soup nila? Gazpacho, di ba? That's the cold soup we would never eat a cold soup in the Philippines kapag summer. 'Di ba? Walang malamig tayo na sabaw. Kasi feeling ko, yun din na parang if it's hot, things spoil faster. So you have to keep everything, all of your food hot kahit napapawisan ka kasi mas better yun kesa ma-food poison ka. So
You look at all the tropical places, no, where they eat a lot of hot food, such as Indonesia, Malaysia,
hot or spicy or
spicy, or India or Thailand, no. How funny that here it's so localized to the Bicolanos, right? Yung spiciness, and I'm trying to figure out why is that so? Because actually, the spicy food makes you sweat and cools you down, diba? Pero dito, I remember we were filming something in Malaysia, and my fellow cast members were like freaked out because everything from breakfast to lunch to dinner was spicy. They're saying, manghang na naman! They were so freaked out. I'm trying to figure out why we never seem to have developed the taste for hot, spicy food. I don't know. Except for Bicol.
And Southern Mindanao also. Muslim Mindanao also. You have to understand that yung spiciness from capsaicin in chili, that all came from Mexico. And it only circulates. So before Columbus and all of that, you will have to realize na India didn't have spicy food. Indonesia didn't have spicy. They had the spices, yung mga clove and all of that. Pero yung anghang na alam natin from capsaicin, it all came after the Portuguese spread it around eh. So yan. And one of the theories that the historians are looking at is that in India, where they were suffering from many diseases, when they started eating the chili, and it gave them that heat then that they had from their spices, it made them, because it had so much vitamin C, made them very healthy, kaya they really liked it. Pero feeling ko sa atin, we already had our vitamin C sources. Kaya hindi natin masyadong ano. But also yung siguro desire natin for freshness, parang ganun. So, kasi nga kukunin na lang natin yung isda dun sa tubig, di ba? And then, yun. That's one aspect.
Hello, hi. It's sort of related to the spice question a little bit. What can you guys say about like how spice in insular Southeast Asia, it's like super prevalent in like Indonesia, Bali, like the South, but it never really made its way north, even if we had like so many like historical trade links. Like whenever you talk about Philippine food, right, it's always the fermentation, it's always the cooking technique, it's always very based on the ingredients that are there. What do you guys think would be the reason for like spice not making its way to places like Luzon, the north, other areas like that? Yeah.
Feeling ko yung vinegar eh. Parang ito yung mas gusto natin. So yung ating preservative, di ba? So spices were parang preservatives or to cover, parang the spices were added to food to cover up certain bad smells, di ba? For example, with the Europeans, and we didn't have that issue. Kasi so many things were very fresh. And also we had as our preservative not the spices but the vinegar. That's my take.
Yeah, one of the theories I'm trying to put together is the reason why yung food system yung recipes natin hindi masyado maanghang is because the chilies are taxed heavily. I was gathering like several like short stories from Bicol, anecdotes, historical data that when the galleons passed through the strait between Samar and the Bicol Peninsula, a lot of the spices are jettisoned in Bicol. And then when it reaches Manila, wala na kasi nga it's heavily taxed, especially the chilies. So parang feeling ko, siguro masyado mataas yung tariff ng chilies. No one really wants to deal with it. We'll just like bring it to China, to Indonesia, to Sumatra, and it's not consumed in the Philippines. So yun yung parang ano. So that's still being talked about like with different authors, historians in the Bicol area, how come the eastern seaboard has all these chilies. And then even in Mindanao, no, like Maguindanao cuisine, Maranao cuisine, because of its proximity to maritime Indonesia and maritime Malaysia. So naging prevalent yun, no? Probably they have like a smaller trading post, let's say in Celebes, in Sulawesi, like in Masacar. They connect with Sandakan, and in Maguindanao, in Zamboanga, Basilan, Sulu. So mas prevalent yung use of sili.
Paano nakarating sa Bicol, sa Legazpi?
Hindi, yung ano nga kasi between the Bicol Peninsula and Samar, that's the crossing that's where they... San Bernardino Strait kasi yung route ng galleon trade. So may mga scholars ngayon, nagtataka bakit walang sili sa Maynila. Because nga, kung meron mga archival records that the price of sili, it's really, really mahal. No? Yeah. Although, there are developments like for instance on a botanical side on botany, we have our indigenous sili. So gusto ko malaman din kung yung ating labuyo in Tagalog, it means wild. So our labuyo is wild crafted. If it's endemic, or ano nga yung pinag-uusapan kung naturalized na cultivar yung labuyo or galing sa Mexico, so it's still being discussed.
It's definitely not endemic kasi nga all the capsicums came from but the actual variety was grew here parang ganun.
Yun nga siguro feeling ko yung seeds, yung plants, it was just jettisoned in Bicol, dun sa port of entry, and then naging labuyo, naging wild. So instead of being cultivated, it's wild-crafted.
Jumping off that, one of the big ideas in the book is about indigenization. And maybe we can start with Steph, who's half French, and what his thoughts are on this idea of foreign influences and indigenizing our food.
Okay, when it comes to that, I mean, I think it is what it is. It sort of happens to all cuisines. No, but it happens to all cuisines. It's true. It happens to all cuisines. I mean, I've had some form of influence from abroad, and then there's a certain appropriation that's done with the cuisine. I mean, I can delve into perfect examples like bread, pandesal. I mean, ensaimada. Yeah. I mean, these are great examples of that. I think. I mean, even all the way to the fried chicken and burger. This is a little bit more modern, but. I mean, fried chicken. You cannot disassociate, fried chicken from our actual weekly food intake. I mean, everybody eats fried chicken. So, I think it's. I mean, I personally think it's not something. It's not really something that we can judge. It just is what it is. It is there, and we can choose to embrace it as part of our cuisine or not. But the reality is that it's here to stay. So I think that. Trying to figure out, trying to figure out how to incorporate that, into the slow food movement is kind of the more interesting part here, because we're not going to change, the fact. I mean, it's landed on our shores and it's going to stay, right? So,
where a global gastronomy, I guess, is concerned. What about the opposite process, like like using French technique with Filipino, ingredients. What is your take on that in terms of global gastronomy?
So again, very classic yung sinasabi ni Doreen na parang we indigenize things that are coming from outside. Kasi nga, 'di ba, parang historically naman we've been trading with so many countries since the 9th century. So talaga namang napaka-open natin, kaya nga siguro kapag sa atin yung imported mentality, kasi nga ganun talaga yan for centuries tayo na parang, oy, may bagong something, let's get it or let's try it, etc. So we're very open, no? But also, what I'm seeing now is because of so many things, the Filipino diaspora, Filipinos winning contests, yung mga chef contests around the world, and then ano pa ba, other things, no? And then the availability of many like typical Filipino ingredients abroad. Parang pabaliktad na ngayon. Like we're starting to influence other cuisines. So for example, ano ba? Like the ube, like there's a ube donut that's so expensive na pinipilahan. So yon, so maybe it's starting with the ingredients and then eventually baka yung techniques natin, no, na parang ano ba? Sisig ba or palayok? Paggamit ng palayok or pag puto bumbong, yung steaming through a tube, etc. No? So that's the exciting thing. So coming from yung sinasabi ni Doreen na papasok, no, na we're indigenizing things that are coming from outside. Baka naman we're seeing now something that's parang the other way around naman. Na parang we're starting to influence other cuisines, di ba?
Thanks to Pinoy baiting.
Oo, Pinoy baiting.
Because anything you make that has Filipino, all the Pinoys on social media are like, oh my God, yes, Filipino.
Pinoy pride, mga ganyan.
I think that accelerated it by a lot when content creators are like making Filipino content because they know that they'll have at least like 1,000 comments from Filipinos.
And also yun na nga, isa part of the diaspora din yung mga mothers at saka yung mga yaya ng mga anak ng mga foreigners. 'Di ba alam nila? So remember nung sa mga Italians na bumibisita sa amin parang, you know what? I have my second mother is Filipina. So parang, really? And then for my birthday, she made 120 lumpia for us. Parang gano'n. So parang wow, alam niya to. So 'di ba? You'll have Italians knowing what Filipino cuisine is already and not parang looking down upon it, no? Kasi they grew up with colonizing the colonizers through the kitchen.
I think parang we're so used to seeing our food as like basic and simple. But actually, the more I travel, the more I realize that our food is just pretty well balanced compared to other cuisines. Like, it can be as simple or as complex as you want it to be. Like, for example, a kinilaw can be just vinegar and onions, or it can be like 10 things with chicharon on top. You know, like, so I think for me, like, the base of our cuisine is really balance. And I appreciate that now that I'm older. So instead of like getting balance from many components, like Filipino cooks strive to achieve balance in one dish using all the ingredients. And I think that translates really well to other tastes because it's so balanced. And that's why I think right now people are like, yeah, adobo, diba? Parang we're like, oh. Parang okay, like, cool. It's kind of weird, right? Like being in the position of people are like, yeah, lumpia. And you're like, okay.
So I think Doreen also talked about society and this idea of bond. So from the turnout tonight around the idea of Filipino food, obviously there is a bond. So we'd like to thank everybody, especially our guests, all our guests actually for coming.